Welcome to Central Missouri Alumni Stories. I'm your host, Cory. Very excited today. I am joined by Cara Finger. Cara works in marketing and promotions for value merchandisers, and she is also the AWG Cares Committee Chair. All right, Cara, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
How are you doing?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I look forward to, hopefully when I have the opportunity to resume doing these interviews in person. Obviously in the COVID world that has created challenges, but admittedly it's actually made scheduling these a little bit easier when people can just do it over Zoom versus me having to ask somebody to come to our office. So, but doing well. Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show here today. Hopefully everything is, going well with you and your family and everyone staying healthy and safe.
Yeah, we're doing pretty well. And it is, I'm down in Southeast Missouri now, so this makes this possible. So gotta look at the—
Yeah, good point. Good point. Oh, you're there temporarily, right? You still live in the Kansas
Just temporarily. Yeah, just temporarily.
Okay, well, good. Yeah, no, it does. This is helpful. So again, I appreciate you taking the time to come on. So with you being, we, kind of talked a little bit before we started recording the show with Value Merchandisers, which is a subsidiary of Associated Wholesale Grocers.
Yes.
Tell me how the grocery business has been since the pandemic started.
It's a mouthful, but yes, it's been booming. Obviously, grocery is an essential business. And it's, for some people, it's the only time they get out during the day. Hopefully as the vaccine is rolling out and things open up, hopefully that's not the case anymore. But it's been a crazy time, but we have a great team and great warehouse team. Everybody's been sticking with it and, getting the groceries to people. It was rough at the beginning when we had all of those panic buyings, but things have started to level.
The toilet paper was flying off the shelves, huh?
Yes. I saw that start to go and I was like,
crazy, right? Of all the things. Yeah. But anyway, now your role specifically, right? I mean, kind of, being in marketing and promotions, how has that changed in the COVID world?
Yeah, so at first, a lot of vendors had to pull marketing just because, things were flying off the shelves anyways. And so we had to retool how we are marketing. A lot of our vendors who had, 20,000 flavors of a product cut it down a lot just so that they could get products out the door to people. And so retooling how we send messages out was total change. And then I also work on our trade shows. That's a big part of my job is planning and helping with the trade shows. And so we did our last 2 trade shows virtual, which was very interesting, definitely different. But
how did those go?
They went well. First one was, we're just figuring it out,
learning,
going with it. The second one, we got down pretty well. So just, being adaptable when it comes, who knows, but.
Yep, that is good. And I'm glad to hear that that's the case, though. I'm sure I can just only imagine, obviously, one, not only your role, but 2, the line of work that you're in, how this has been extra crazy over the last year or so and how many changes there's been. Well, good. And, and we're going to get a little bit more into that. But again, your role with Associated Wholesale Grocers. And then, of course, you are the AWG Cares Committee Chair. And then also, one other thing you reminded me of before we started recording the show is that you're also teaching at UCM.
Yeah.
So what are you teaching now?
So I'm teaching integrated, I think they call it integrated strategic communications. It was integrated marketing communications when I went through. But it's a spring class of about, say 20 junior, senior level students. And it's fun because it's what I'm doing professionally. I get to teach
that is cool
to students. And it's just the cross section of marketing and PR and personal selling and where all of that kind of meets together. So it's a fun class.
Yeah, I bet it is. And I bet it's, useful and applicable and helpful too. Even as the educator, there's still, I'm sure, things that you
I learn from my students all of the time. I love putting out questions for them just to get their perspective on things. Cause I mean, they have grown up with social media and everything. so it's just, they have a different perspective on a lot of things. So it's great to get their opinions and see what they think, see what the future PR professionals will be like. So
if you had to try to, put your finger on some of the, the bigger, I guess, differentiators, thinking about even, just, you and I, our generation versus this next generation of students. I mean, whether it's sort of the lens at which they see the world, the way that they think about PR, I'm just curious, what would you say is, from your perspective, what is much different about the next generation or the students you're working with currently, perhaps as opposed to ours?
yeah, that's a good question. And I think the biggest thing is how they judge a brand.
Mm,
Based typically, I look at a brand based on quality of the product and the value. They're looking at it more on the social side, what that brand stands for, what they're doing in their community. So the way that they look at brands is just a bit different, how they're judging them and how they're deciding whether they're going to adopt that brand or not.
yeah, that's a good observation, and that is really interesting. I don't know, the last show that I hosted, I don't know if you have met Heather Woodard or not, who's another PR alumni, but she works for McDonald's in
Yeah.
Chicago. And again, her role with the company is, she's the director and is involved in the, the multicultural community engagement, diversity, et cetera, because of the way that people view brands, and ultimately what is their, what drives their decision making in terms of what products they're going to spend their money on and the ones that they won't.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun because I'm teaching, the consumer journey and how people make decisions. And so just knowing those differences between, my parents' generation, mine, and then this next is very fascinating.
Yep. Yeah, it really is. And it's obviously accessibility in the world today too. Like, as a consumer, right? It's so easy to
Oh,
buy
yeah.
stuff. It's like, I
Yeah.
wonder if, 20 years from now, I can just like, the technology will be at a point where I can just think about something and then
Yeah.
boom, it's been ordered. But again, where impulse buying can be truly impulse.
Yeah, exactly.
Time will tell. But again, so, to kind of, to kick things off though, and to take us back to UCM, I know that you grew up in Jefferson City, right? So
Mhm.
the lovely state capital in
Yeah.
Missouri. What led you to UCM?
Well, it was kind of a roundabout way. Growing up, I always thought I'd go to Mizzou because it was, 30 minutes away. I went to Mizzou games all the time. I love Columbia.
Sure.
Um, but as I started going through high school, I kind of wanted to get a little further away. And I I knew that I would be paying for some of my college. My parents helped
Sure.
me immensely, but they also wanted me to earn, feel that
Skin in the
ownership.
game.
Yeah, they definitely had me put some skin in the game. And so as I was looking at options, and specifically scholarship wise, UCM offered so much more. And it was kind of between them and Missouri State. But my senior year, my parents decided that they were going to move to Springfield senior
Okay.
year of high
So that
school.
had been a little close
And
to
I was
home.
like, you know what? I'm gonna go to UCM. And now I look back at it and it was the perfect choice for me. I loved the smaller class size, the feel of the campus, the distance. It was far away from my parents and my hometown. That I really wanted that college experience, but still I felt comfortable enough where if I needed to get home, I could get home. And I did have some friends go there, so it wasn't a total shock of everything's brand new.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That is a good thing. I think that is a helpful thing for a lot of people when they do make a decision of where they're going to go. Now, when you went off to school, though, did you know that you wanted to study public relations?
Not really. So I decided pretty quickly. Growing up, I obviously loving Mizzou, I wanted to do journalism and I loved to
Sure.
write. But then I started to kind of explore other options. It was, during that time where journalism is dead and all. I was like,
Yeah.
do I
Yeah.
want to
It
go
was
into
that
this?
time, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I started looking at other options and I actually went to orientation as a marketing
Okay.
major. And I talked with the professors and it was fine, but I wasn't completely sold that that's what I wanted to do. And I remember coming home to my parents and talking about it. And my mom, who was an attorney at the time, said, well, what about public relations? I had no idea she had this career before being an attorney where she was a public information officer. And I was like, I don't even know what that is.
Sure.
But she's like, you love to write, you're a communicator, just give it a shot. And I was looking through the course book and at the classes, I was like, this sounds awesome. So going onto campus, I had declared public relations and fell in love with it right away.
Yeah. Do you have any, I guess, experiences or highlights from your time at UCM inside the PR program specifically? It does or doesn't have to be inside the program, but I'm just curious, can you share, some of the benefits or the highlights, I guess, that you felt like of your college experience at UCM specifically?
Yeah. So, I mentioned earlier that once I got to UCM, it was the perfect fit. And it really was, because specifically in the PR program where I spent most of my time, the professors cared so much about me and about my
Yep.
success. And it was really just reaching out and asking, and they would do anything to like help me succeed. And for me, I'm still connected with several of them today. Not just because I'm an adjunct professor, but before I started doing that, they
Right.
helped me immensely with recommendations, just caring that I succeeded. And I also made a lot of really, really great friends. I was in a sorority, so I had a lot of sorority friends, but also in PR. I took leadership roles in PRSSA, Public Relations Student Society of America. And one of my very best friends, who I don't get to see as much because we don't live in the same city, but she's a fellow PR student graduate, and I bounce things off of her, and we're close. And so I really gained lifelong connections and friendships at UCM and in the PR program.
Yeah, that is good to hear. And it's interesting. I'll share this with you. And, for the folks watching or listening, that seems to be not a repeated answer. People have different answers, but it ultimately is the same information, the same questions, that it's almost everyone who's come on the show mentions that, right? The lifelong connections, the hands-on educational experience, professors that were, legitimately invested in their success, and that were willing to, help in whatever ways they could. But also as a fellow, PR student, in fact, obviously we had, a number of classes together. One of the things that I appreciated about the program and the university, I can't obviously say this for every program there, was that, from my perspective, the expectations were pretty high for the students, but I think that was a good thing. And people have to learn how to operate in that type of environment, because there's a lot of, kids and students that may not have had a lot of experiences like that prior to college, where they've, been held to a really high standard, and the expectations are high, and, mediocrity just wasn't really accepted from my perspective. But I think that is what helped prepare, presumably that's what helped, prepare you, myself, and a number of other PR program alumni that have come on the show. They felt like they were pretty well adjusted when the time came to enter the workforce, because they weren't studying something that was a walk in the park when they were in college because of the expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that you say that, because, I said once I started PR, I fell in love with it. There was one time when I was like, I don't know if I can keep up with this. And I think it was,
what time? Let's hear it.
When I first got into, I think it was writing and editing, and we did all the press releases. And I had Dr. Horn, and he said, if there is one error in your press release, you automatically get a C.
I remember
And
that. I remember that class.
Oh my gosh.
One error, a comma in the wrong place.
You rise to the occasion, and you learn not to make errors. So.
Yep. Can't have that comma in the wrong place. But again, that's the type of, again, I think, demanding excellence. In addition to that, also, frankly, just having those high expectations and teaching the nature of how important it is to be attentive to detail.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. So you graduated. When did you graduate?
2011.
Okay. And after you graduated, what was your first job?
So while I was at UCM, I worked part-time for Sigma Tau Gamma.
Okay.
They used to be headquartered in, their fraternity headquarters was in Warrensburg, because that's where they were founded. I think they're in Indianapolis now, maybe.
Okay.
And so upon graduation, they actually made my part-time job full-time. So I stayed in Warrensburg for a year and enjoyed that. I it was such a good experience. The people that I worked with were really great. So it was a nice transition, not a total shock into the professional world because I was still in a very comfortable place, but it was a good year there. And then I moved to Ameristar Casinos. That was my first foray out of Warrensburg.
Okay. And what were you hired to do there?
So I was the corporate social media coordinator. They had, I think, maybe 7 locations at the time. They've been bought out since then, so there's a lot more locations. But at the time, I think I helped with 7 locations doing their social media, and I was part of the PR team there. So
cool. And the folks that hired you there, were they also, I think, if memory serves me correctly from our earlier conversation, the folks that hired you there were also UCM alumni?
Yeah, I think that helped majorly in my my hiring.
Did you seek that out, or were you effectively recruited?
So I saw the position posted, and I didn't know at the time that they were UCM alums. And I applied, and it was, since it was on the PR team, there was a lot of writing and testing to get down to it. And then when I did my final interviews, I found out that 2 people on the team would be from UCM, and they were PR alums, which was wonderful. It was Roxanne Kincaid. She was the director of public relations then. And then Celeste Burks was the PR manager at the Kansas City location where my office was. Okay. And so I got to work directly under them and learn so much from them, which, I mean, that was just a pivotal career move and a pivotal time for me to learn from them. And they were so wonderful.
How long were you there?
So I was there about 2 years. I moved, they were bought out by Pinnacle Entertainment. And so at that point, things were shifting. And so I found my current job at Associated Wholesale Grocers. So.
Okay, good. So you were there for 2 years after you were working with the fraternity in Warrensburg. Can you tell me, when you look back, I guess, on those first 2 roles before we get into your current career, are there any parallels you can draw, or, examples, whether vague or specific, that you feel like your education and the PR program specifically, where you could, go and begin working there and basically, day 1 or day 2 actually start adding value because of your, education? I think something that's unique about PR, from what I've heard from other people, is that people have felt like wherever they started working, it was like that the skills that they acquired while they were in school were put to use immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. So both of my jobs with SIGTA and with Ameristar were very heavy in writing, which is what I enjoyed. And so I felt more than prepared, thanks to Dr. Horn's writing and editing class, for that. And then just the expectations again. When I was at Ameristar, I remember the first time I made like a pretty decent error, and I was so nervous. I went to Roxanne and I said, "This is what I did. I feel awful. How do I fix this?" And she gave me so much grace and talked me down from like the anxiety that I had.
Freaking out, yeah.
But she goes, "You won't make this again, will you?" And I was like, "No, I won't." Yep. So, but she was a great role model. And I think, with UCM, I think the tagline now, or for a while, was learning to a greater degree. It wasn't when I was there, but I've seen that tagline. And my learning never stopped at just UCM, especially under Roxanne and Celeste. They were constantly showing me things and helping me and giving me instruction and training to continue to grow and be better.
Yeah, and that is so good to hear, because again, I think being a lifelong learner is key in any role or any field or any industry, and certainly feel like, especially within PR. So well, good. I'm glad to hear that. Now, obviously, you've been with AWG for how long?
It'll be 8 years this fall.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And what does that journey look like for you?
Yeah. So originally, when Ameristar was going through the merger, my immediate boss at the time, she wasn't a UCM alum, but she was wonderful. Alicia knew my future boss at AWG.
Okay.
And we knew things were shifting. And so she kind of brought the position to mind. And so I interviewed for that, ended up getting that position as a digital marketing specialist. And so I worked in the digital marketing team for 5 years, my first 5 years at AWG. And I specifically managed the brands for their private label. So like Best Choice, Clearly Organic, Always Save. So I ran their social media, their website content, email marketing, that kind of thing. And then I helped with AWG corporate communications when they needed me. I also had a Tippins Pie. That was one of my other fun brands that I got to do social media for.
I bet
So
that was fun. Yeah,
it was so much fun.
well, it's cool to hear that because it sounds like, again, still in a relatively young career, right? The things that you've done have, sort of been foundational with you having that desire, the journalistic mind, writing, attention to detail, obviously the corporate brand management, social media. It seems like you've had in marketing, right? Which you initially thought was, going to be your major, that you've, been in these different roles that have almost been like a convergence of all of those different things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Good. And then, so tell me though about the AWG Cares. So you're the committee chair, just kind of, let the audience know what that is.
Yeah, so I took on this role about a year ago, and it's more of a volunteer role within AWG.
Sure.
But we have an employee charitable foundation that was started in 2017. And
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so I lead that. We have a committee of 12 people, one person from each of our divisions, where AWG or VMC, which is a subsidiary that I'm focused on now, has a location. And so I lead that committee. And what we do is we help get awareness out about AWG Cares. We submit or we review grants and actually award those grants out to organizations. And it's a really cool foundation because it's all supported, and organizations are nominated by employees. So employees give to it. AWG does match, and sometimes we'll get some other support, but it's powered by employees. We nominate all of the organizations that get the grants, and it's a really cool foundation that I'm lucky to head.
Yeah, it sounds like it. What type of organizations apply for grants?
So employees actually have to nominate the organizations. And so we focus on 3 pillars. It's hunger, homelessness, as being a food distributor, that was a no-brainer. Disaster relief. So we give a lot of grants to, we have a division in the Gulf Coast. We help them out a lot during hurricanes. We have a lot of stores in Texas. So in all of that cold weather that we just had, we, sent some disaster relief grants down there. So hunger, homelessness, disaster relief, and then medical research and supplies. Those are our 3 pillars. And so employees can pick any organization, nonprofit organization within those pillars to receive a grant, which is really cool. What's really awesome about the foundation is that, we're a co-op wholesaler. So it's kind of the collective, and so our foundation kind of takes that feel among our employees. I can donate my however much a month to an organization that I like, or I can donate to the foundation and nominate that organization for a grant, and it pulls all of these other employees' money to really make a big impact on that organization.
Okay. That makes perfect sense. And that's pretty neat. Now, I would also imagine, given the sort of unique structure of AWG Cares inside of, the larger organization, that the majority of the funds that are raised also are used, explicitly for, helping out organizations that need help.
Yeah. So we focus a lot on where our division or distribution centers are, but we also want to help the communities where our retailers have stores. We have 3,500 stores that we service. And
no kidding. Okay.
Yeah. So we're pretty much from Colorado east, except for the Northeast. So Midwest, South. And so we really want to help organizations in those areas and keep it local. And it's really cool to see because we can make such a big impact, and we always get stories of how we've helped these organizations, and it's really rewarding work. So
yeah, I bet it is. That is very neat. I mean, that you've just had that exposure and opportunity to do that, obviously, along with what you're doing, professionally for the company,
yeah.
all while you are also, now teaching at UCM after your UCM education, and you did have the Mizzou experience too, which we didn't really touch on,
Yeah.
but obviously when you went there and got your master's and studied journalism. So that's good. That's very exciting. Now, the next question I would have for you is, looking at what you're doing now, when you think about the future, right? What, what comes next? What do you kind of, how do you envision, the next, I don't know, 1, 3, 5, 10, however
Yeah.
long of a period of time, what's the next step?
Yeah. So professionally with AWG, I work for the subsidiary Value Merchandise, and
Yep.
we're focused on health and beauty, specialty food, and general merchandise, while
Okay.
AWG is more focused on grocery. And just with everything that's evolving with online shopping and how this pandemic has affected behaviors, we have a lot of opportunity to just like adapt and figure things out with that. So I feel like the next few years with AWG and the grocery industry in general is just going to be constantly changing. And we have a new warehouse that's going to be very automated coming in 2023. So with AWG and BMC, things are just going to be changing a lot. And so I'm excited to be a part of that. And then with AWG Cares, as I said, I got 1 year under my belt, and I think last year we gave away $115,000 in grants.
That's awesome.
So I look forward to growing that. And we got a few new members on the committee, and just their excitement for helping other people is really exciting. And I look forward to being a part of that as well.
Yeah, good for you. And I'm glad you're doing that. It sounds like a really neat role. Now, I did want to ask you though, were you involved basically in the creation of AWG Cares?
So it was interesting because when it was created, I was still in my digital marketing role at
Okay.
AWG. And so I helped kind of with publicity of it and awareness of it to the employees. But idea wise, they had been thinking about it for a while. So I've gotten to see it, start from zero and grow.
Yeah, that's
and,
very cool.
It's been really cool. I'm really passionate about it. So
yeah, that's great. I'm glad you're doing that. I'm glad you have that opportunity, because it is a pretty unique one.
mhm.
There's not a ton of organizations, that have that type of structure, and where it can be, decisions can be made by the employees, and the employees
Yeah.
kind of have the voice, and the chairs are the chair and the committee
Yeah.
members are employees too. That's cool. Good.
Mhm.
Good. So again, I appreciate you sharing all of that with me. I have, before we kind of wind things down here, Cara, I did want to, since you mentioned to me before the show that you've watched some of these episodes, this will come as no surprise when I tell you that we're going to go into the fun segment here,
Yeah.
which is the lightning round, or the Mule Minute, or Jenny Jam in this instance.
Yeah.
But again, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to I'm going to rattle through some questions.
Okay.
And I'm just curious what, the designed to be the fun segment, of course, just, your sort of, top of mind answer for the questions that I have.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We'll start with an easy one. What is your favorite place to travel to?
Arizona. I love Arizona. I love spring training. I love hiking and the sunshine. So
Yep, that's good. This is a great time to be there.
yeah,
March, maybe not so much in the Midwest, but anyway, what is your what is the best way, or what's your preferred way, just to kind of, you're involved in a lot of things. How do you relax or unwind?
I love to read. So sitting on the couch with a good book and just unwinding that way.
That's good. Do you have any, over the last, I don't know, year or so, do you have any book recommendations that you read that you just feel, really, really strongly about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I just read a book called Bravey by Alexi Pappas. She's an Olympic runner.
I heard about that.
It's good. I would recommend it, especially for like college age women. It's all about her and her setting goals and accomplishing her goals, and it deals a lot with mental health, which is a big topic right now.
Sure.
I mean, I think it's a great read for anyone, but especially I would suggest if there's any college-age women reading that or watching this to give it a read.
And it's called Bravey, you said?
Bravey, yeah.
Bravey. Okay.
It's
All right. Good.
yeah, and
Good. No, thank you.
She's a quirky writer, so it's fun to read too.
Good. Good. Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. Next, what has been, when you look back, going back to your time at UCM and then into your professional career, what do you feel like is the best, business or professional decision that you've made to this point?
Oh gosh. Probably
Or one thing you just look back on, you're like, I'm really glad I did that.
Yeah, probably at when I was at Ameristar, Roxanne really pushed me to be on the PRSSA board at Kansas City. And I did not feel ready for that at all. I took on a role where I planned the big awards, the Prism Awards, and I had no experience at all. But I learned so much through that. And I think it's so important to, especially for new grads, to know that you're not going to be prepared for everything, but you keep learning. Your college gives you that foundation, but you keep learning. And I'm really glad I had mentors and bosses like her who pushed me to just go for it and learn as you go.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. And I think my next question is almost going to kind of piggyback off of that. In that evaluating where you're at, in your life and your career now, and you go back to, day one on the job with the fraternity in Warrensburg, what is one thing that now that you wish you would have known then?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. Oh gosh, I got to think about it.
That's all right. There's no timer. I don't have a stopwatch going. So
yeah. I mean, I think it kind of piggybacks on that.
Yeah, it does.
You're always going to be learning and you're always going to be adapting. I just think about my career in the past year and how things have just turned completely upside down. And you just keep going and you just keep learning. And that's okay. And that's how it should be.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of just perseverance and resiliency in that also.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the thick skin is a good thing, and adaptability also.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So next question here, this will be an easier one. Well, maybe it'll be an easier one for you. If you walked into an establishment and there was a karaoke machine and you had to pick up the microphone and sing one song, what is your go-to song?
So I'm not a great singer, so I'll go more with a rap with Salt and Pepper Push It.
Okay. All right. Good choice.
Yeah.
Hopefully, post-pandemic, you'll be able to get back out there again, get back on the karaoke. On the karaoke tour, but okay, good. And then, lastly, and I don't intend, I guess, for some of these questions to sort of run together the way that they do, but the last question I wanted to ask you is, if you could go back to, again, yourself, right? So college Cara, if you could go and tell yourself one thing or give yourself one piece of advice, or any graduate maybe for that matter, if it's your students now, what's one piece of advice that you'd give them? It doesn't necessarily have to pertain to what they're going to do professionally, but just, the experiences that have shaped you to where you are today. What's a piece of advice that you'd give someone?
Especially for students, I'd say have the confidence to go big. I remember, thinking of some internships that I wanted to apply for in bigger cities, and I didn't necessarily have the confidence to do that. And looking back, UCM set me up for all the skills. Like I could have taken those on. And so now as I go through my career, having the confidence to go for things, I know that I can do it. Even if I don't know how to do it, I know that I can do it. So confidence is a big one. Have it in yourself and know that you've got a good support behind you.
I like that. It's one of those things, right? It's like someone's going to do it, so it might as well be you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so, okay,
absolutely.
Good. Well, thank you. Yeah. Thanks for humoring me and going through that. You did good. You did just fine.
Thank you.
You did just fine. So don't be concerned as far as that goes. But again, Cara, it's been great to have this conversation here today. I'm sure we could, continue talking all day, of course, but I'm glad to hear, basically what your career track has looked like to where it is today. Sounds like what you're doing right now and what's happened within the last year, of course, has kind of gotten flipped on its head. So you're continuing to, grow and progress and learn and adapt through that. But certainly wish you all the best and appreciate everything that you've done for, that you have done and continue to do for the university, for the PR program. And, we're obviously happy to have you and proud to have you as another alumni. So thank you for that.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I think that is about all of the time that we have here today. As a quick, reminder for our audience, whether you're watching this video or if you're listening to the podcast, if you have any ideas, suggestions, feedback, criticism, whatever it is, I can take that. And if you have a suggestion or somebody that might be a great guest to have on the show in the future too, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can find me on social media. If you just search for Cory Bittner on, Facebook or LinkedIn, you can find me there. I'm on Instagram and Twitter as well. My handle is the same on both of those, at Cory Bittner KC. I know, Cara, that you're on LinkedIn also. If somebody wanted to try to further the conversation or get a hold of you, I think that's a great way. And again, Cara, thank you for your time. Thank you for everybody who is watching and listening, and we'll look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thanks.